Most people spend their mornings scrolling, checking notifications, wasting the 1 hour that could change their entire financial life. This is not for those people. The difference between people who build wealth and people who just dream about it is not talent. It's not luck. It's not even hard work. It's what they put into their minds first thing in the morning. See, your subconscious brain is most open in the first hour after you wake up. Scientists call it the hypnopompic state. And in that window, whatever you feed your mind becomes your belief system, your decisions, your income. This audiobook was built specifically for that window. Listen to it every morning for 21 days and watch what changes. Now, before we begin, let me be clear about something. This is not positive thinking. This is not manifest your dreams nonsense. This is a systematic rewiring of the mental patterns that are keeping you broke. The habits, the fears, the scarcity mindset you didn't even know you had. Wealth isn't a result of your circumstances. It's a result of your programming. And today, we change your programming. If you're ready to stop leaving money on the table every single morning, stay with me. No distractions, no skipping ahead. Just 60 minutes that could be worth everything. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Reprogramming the mind before the world gets to you. Before the world speaks to you, your mind is already listening. Before the noise begins, before the messages, the notifications, the demands, there's a window, a quiet moment, a powerful opening. And most people waste it. They wake up and immediately reach for their phone. They scroll, they consume, they react. And without realizing it, they allow the outside world to program their mind before they even take control of it. This is where they lose. Not later in the day, not in big decisions, but in the first hour, because that first hour sets the tone for everything that follows. Your focus, your energy, your mindset, your decisions, and ultimately, your results. What you do in that window is not small. It is everything. Because your brain, in that early state, is highly receptive. Your subconscious is open, flexible, ready to absorb. This is what scientists refer to as the hypnopompic state, a state where your brain transitions from sleep to wakefulness, where critical thinking is low and suggestion is high, which means one thing. Whatever you feed your mind in that state becomes deeply embedded. It shapes how you think, how you feel, how you act. And if you're not intentional, you'll be programmed by default, by social media, by news, by other people's opinions, by negativity, by distraction. And once that programming is set, your entire day follows it. You react instead of lead. You consume instead of create. You drift instead of move with purpose. This is why most people stay stuck. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, but because they lose control of their mind before the day even begins. They allow the world to set their direction instead of choosing it themselves. But today is different because now you understand the truth. You must program your mind before the world programs it for you. This is not motivation. This is not inspiration. This is control. You're taking control of your mental environment before anything else has the chance to influence it. And that changes everything. Because when your mind is aligned, your actions follow. And when your actions align, your results change. So instead of starting your day with noise, you start with intention. Instead of reacting, you lead. Instead of drifting, you decide. This is how wealthy minds operate. They do not leave their thinking to chance. They direct it. They condition it. They reinforce it daily because they understand something most people ignore. Success is not created in the moment of opportunity. It is created in the quiet moments before it, in the habits, in the repetition, in the unseen mental patterns that drive behavior. And those patterns are built here, in the morning, in this window, right now. So as you listen, understand this. You're not just hearing words. You are installing beliefs. You are shaping identity. You are building a mindset that will influence every decision you make today and every result that follows. So stay present. Stay focused. Let the noise stay outside. because this time is yours. This moment is yours. And what you do with it will define everything that comes next. This is where the shift begins. Not later, not someday. Now, right here, in this moment where your mind is open and ready to be transformed. Chapter 2. Installing a wealth identity. Wealth does not begin in your bank account. It begins in your identity. Before money shows up in your life, a version of you must exist that can create it, handle it, and keep it. And most people skip this part. They chase money without changing who they are. They want results without transformation. And that's why even when money comes, it doesn't stay. Because identity always wins. Your actions follow your beliefs. Your habits follow your identity. And your results follow your actions. So if you see yourself as someone who struggles financially, someone who is bad with money, someone who just gets by, then no matter what you try, your behavior will always pull you back to that level. Not because you're incapable, but because your identity is controlling your decisions. This is why real change starts within, not externally. You must become the person who creates wealth, not just someone who wants it. And that shift begins here, in your mind. In this moment, you begin to install a new identity, an identity built on clarity, on control, on discipline, on ownership. You stop seeing yourself as someone who reacts to life and start seeing yourself as someone who creates outcomes. Because wealthy individuals don't wait. They decide, they act, they adjust, and they move forward consistently. This is the identity you are building, not slowly, but intentionally, through repetition, through exposure, through what you feed your mind every single morning. Because identity is not something you declare once. It is something you reinforce daily, with thoughts, with actions, with consistency. So right now, you shift your internal language. Instead of saying, I hope things get better, you say, I create better outcomes. Instead of saying, I'll try to be more disciplined, you say, I do what needs to be done. Instead of saying, I want to be successful, you say, I act like someone who is already successful. Because your mind responds to certainty, not hesitation. And the more certain you become in your identity, the more your behavior aligns with it. This is not pretending. This is conditioning. You're training your mind to operate at a higher standard. And over time, that standard becomes your normal. Another important truth is this. Wealthy identity is not about money itself. It is about behavior. It is about how you think when faced with decisions, how you respond to challenges, how you use your time, how you manage your energy. Because money follows behavior, and behavior follows identity. So if you build the identity, the results will follow, naturally. But if you chase results without identity, they will always be temporary. So you must become aware of your current patterns. How do you think about money? Do you see it as scarce or abundant? Do you avoid responsibility or take control? Do you delay or act immediately? These patterns matter because they shape your reality. And now, you are replacing them. Deliberately, you are installing new patterns. Patterns of action, patterns of discipline, patterns of growth. Because repetition creates belief, and belief creates identity. Another powerful shift is ownership. You take full responsibility for your life, your results, your decisions. No blame, no excuses. Because the moment you take ownership, you gain control. And control is where power begins. You stop waiting. You stop hoping. You start creating. That is the difference. And that difference changes everything. So as you move forward, understand this clearly. You're not just trying to improve your situation. You are becoming someone new. Someone who thinks differently, acts differently, operates at a higher level. And as that identity strengthens, your actions will change automatically. Your decisions will improve, your discipline will increase, and your results will reflect it, because you cannot act against who you believe you are for long. Eventually, your behavior aligns. So your job is simple. Reinforce the identity. Every day, every morning, every action, until it becomes natural, until it becomes automatic, until it becomes who you are. Because once that happens, wealth is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you create, and more importantly, something you keep. Chapter 3. Destroying the habits that keep you broke. Before you build wealth, you must destroy what is keeping you poor. Because growth is not just about adding new habits. It's about removing the ones that are silently working against you every single day. And most of these habits are invisible. They feel normal. They feel harmless. They feel like just how life is. But they're costing you more than you realize. Every day, every decision, every action. Because your life is not controlled by big moments. It is controlled by repeated patterns. What you do daily becomes who you are. And who you are determines what you earn, what you keep, and what you become. So if your results are not where you want them to be, the answer is not more effort. It's better habits. The first habit that keeps most people broke is unconscious consumption. You consume without thinking. Information, content, entertainment, opinions. And while some of it feels useful, most of it is just noise. It fills your mind, distracts your focus, and drains your time. Time that could be used to build, to create, to improve. Instead, it is spent watching others live the life you want. And the more you consume, the less you produce, the less you create, the less you grow. Because consumption feels productive, but it rarely is. And when it becomes your default, progress stops. Another destructive habit is avoidance. Avoiding difficult tasks, avoiding responsibility, avoiding decisions that require effort. Because discomfort feels bad. So you delay. You tell yourself later. You convince yourself you'll do it when you feel ready. But that moment never comes. Because avoidance becomes automatic. And the longer you avoid, the harder things feel. Until simple actions start to feel overwhelming. And when everything feels overwhelming, you do nothing. This is how people stay stuck. Not because they can't move forward, but because they keep avoiding the actions that would move them forward. Another habit is instant gratification. Choosing what feels good now over what benefits you later. Spending instead of saving. Scrolling instead of working. Relaxing instead of improving. And while these choices feel small, they compound, day after day, week after week, until years pass and nothing changes. Because success requires delayed gratification. Doing what is hard now. So life becomes easier later. But most people do the opposite. They choose easy now and end up with a hard life later. Another hidden habit is lack of structure. No clear plan, no defined actions, no control over time. You wake up and react. You do what feels urgent, what grabs your attention, instead of what actually matters. And when your days are unstructured, your progress becomes random, inconsistent, unreliable, because without direction, effort is wasted. Another powerful habit that keeps people broke is negative self-talk. What you tell yourself matters. I'm not good with money. I can't do this. This is too hard. These thoughts may seem small, but they shape your behavior. They limit your actions. They reduce your confidence. And over time, they become your identity. So you must become aware of your inner voice. Because if it is negative, it will hold you back, no matter how hard you try. Another destructive pattern is inconsistency. Starting and stopping. Getting motivated and then quitting. Taking action and then falling back. Because results require consistency, not intensity. It's not about doing a lot once. It's about doing something every day. And when you're inconsistent, you never build momentum. You stay stuck in the cycle of starting over. Again, and again, and again. But here's the truth. You don't need to fix everything at once. You need to become aware. Because awareness is the first step to change. You start noticing your patterns, your habits, your behaviors. And once you see them clearly, you can interrupt them, replace them, upgrade them, one by one. Because transformation is not instant. It is built through small changes, repeated daily. Another powerful shift is taking control of your decisions. Every choice matters. Every action compounds. So instead of acting automatically, you act intentionally. You choose growth over comfort, Discipline over ease. Action over delay. Again and again. Until it becomes natural. Until it becomes who you are. Because habits are not permanent. They are programmable. And right now, you are rewriting yours. You are removing what weakens you and replacing it with what strengthens you. You're no longer living on autopilot. You're taking control because the life you want is not built by chance. It is built by design through the habits you practice daily. So understand this clearly. If you keep the same habits, you will keep the same results. But if you change your habits, you change everything. Your mindset, your actions, your income, your future. So this is where it begins. Not with something big, but with something small. A single decision, a single action, a single moment where you choose differently. Because that moment, repeated enough times, becomes transformation. And that transformation changes your life. Chapter 4. The discipline of doing what must be done, no matter what. Most people wait. They wait to feel motivated. They wait for the right mood. They wait for the perfect time. And while they wait, nothing happens. Days pass. Opportunities pass. Life moves forward without them. This is where they lose. Because success does not come from what you feel like doing. It comes from what you do, especially when you don't feel like it. This is the discipline gap. The space between knowing what to do and actually doing it. And that gap is where most people stay stuck for years. Not because they don't know better, but because they don't act better. So understand this clearly. Discipline is not about intensity. It is about consistency. It is about showing up every day, regardless of how you feel. Because your feelings are unstable. They change constantly. One moment you feel motivated. The next moment you don't. So if your actions depend on your feelings, your results will always be inconsistent, unpredictable, limited. But discipline removes that instability. It creates structure. It creates reliability. It creates progress, even on the days when you don't feel like moving. And those are the days that matter the most. Because anyone can act when they feel good. Anyone can work when they're motivated. But very few people act when it's hard, when it's uncomfortable, when it requires effort without immediate reward. That is where separation happens. That is where growth happens. That is where your future is decided. Because every time you act despite resistance, you build strength. Every time you follow through despite discomfort, you build discipline. Every time you choose action over excuses, you reinforce control. And over time, those moments compound. They shape your identity. They change how you see yourself. From someone who tries to someone who executes. This is the shift. And once it happens, everything changes. Because now, action is no longer optional. It becomes automatic. It becomes part of who you are. But to get there, you must understand something important. Discipline is built in the moments you don't feel like acting. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, but when it's hard. Because those are the moments that define you. Those are the moments where you either move forward or stay the same. And most people choose comfort. They choose the easier option. They delay. They justify. They tell themselves, I'll do it later. But later never comes. Because later is just another form of avoidance. And avoidance creates stagnation. So you must eliminate that option completely. There is no later. There is only now. And when it's time to act, you act. Immediately. No negotiation. No discussion. No excuses. Because every time you negotiate with yourself, you weaken your discipline. You train your mind to delay, to avoid, to choose comfort over growth. And once that pattern is built, it becomes automatic. So the rule is simple. When it's time to act, act. No matter what. Another powerful principle is this. Make your actions non-negotiable. Just like brushing your teeth. Just like eating. Just like sleeping. You don't debate those actions. You don't question them. You just do them. Automatically. Without hesitation. That is the level your discipline must reach. Where action is not something you consider. It is something you execute. Without thinking. But this requires repetition. It requires consistency. It requires you to show up again and again. Even when it's boring. Even when it's repetitive. even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because discipline is not exciting. It is not glamorous. It is not dramatic. It is simple. It is quiet. It is doing the same things over and over until they produce results. And most people quit here because they want excitement. They want quick results. They want immediate change. But real growth does not work that way. It is slow. It is steady. It is built through repetition. And the people who succeed are the ones who stay consistent long enough to see the results. Another key element of discipline is removing emotional decision-making. You do not decide based on how you feel. You decide based on what needs to be done. Feel tired? You act. Feel unmotivated? You act. Feel distracted? You act. Because your feelings do not control your actions. You do. And the more you reinforce that, the stronger your discipline becomes. There is also power in standards. What you tolerate becomes your reality. If you tolerate delay, you will delay. If you tolerate inconsistency, you will be inconsistent. But if you raise your standards, if you decide that action is required, not optional, everything changes. Because now, your behavior aligns with a higher level. You no longer accept excuses. You no longer accept delay. You expect more from yourself, and you follow through. This is how disciplined individuals operate. Not because they are special, but because they hold themselves to a higher standard. Another important truth is this. Discipline creates freedom. It may feel restrictive at first. It may feel like pressure, like effort. But over time, it gives you control. Control over your time, your actions, your results. And control creates freedom. Because now, your life is not random. It is directed. It is intentional. It is built, step by step, action by action, day by day. So understand this clearly. You do not need more motivation. You need more discipline. You need a system that forces action, a standard that eliminates excuses, a mindset that prioritizes execution over comfort. Because once you build that, everything changes. You stop waiting. You stop hesitating. You stop delaying. And you become someone who does what needs to be done, no matter what. And that is where real power begins. Because when you can rely on yourself, when you can trust that you will act, when you can execute regardless of how you feel, you become unstoppable. Not because things are easy, but because you no longer depend on ease. You depend on discipline. And discipline will take you further than motivation ever could. Chapter 5. The power of immediate action, moving before your mind stops you. There's a small window, a very small window, between the moment you decide to do something and the moment your mind starts talking you out of it. And that window determines everything. Because if you act within it, you move forward. But if you hesitate, your mind takes over. It introduces doubt, excuses, distractions, and just like that, the action disappears. This is the silent battle happening inside you every single day. Not between you and the world, but between you and your own mind. And most people lose that battle, not because they're weak, but because they wait too long to act. They give their mind time to interfere, time to question, time to resist. And the longer they wait, the stronger that resistance becomes, until taking action feels heavy, difficult, overwhelming. So they delay, and delay becomes a habit. This is why immediate action is powerful, because it bypasses resistance. It cuts through overthinking. It moves you forward before doubt has time to grow. The moment you think, I should do this, that is your signal, not to think more, not to plan more, but to act immediately, because that first instinct is usually clear, simple, direct. But if you don't act on it, your mind complicates it. It starts asking questions. What if this doesn't work? What if I'm not ready? What if there's a better way? And suddenly, something simple becomes complicated, heavy, delayed. This is how opportunities are lost, not in big moments, but in small hesitations, repeated daily. So your goal is to shorten the gap between thinking and doing, between deciding and acting, as much as possible. until there is almost no gap at all. You think and you move. You decide and you execute. That is the level you are building. Because speed creates momentum, and momentum creates results. Another powerful truth is this: the longer you wait, the harder it becomes. Delay increases resistance. Action reduces it. So when you hesitate, you are not making things easier. You are making them harder. Every minute you wait adds weight to the task, adds pressure, adds stress, until something small feels overwhelming. But when you act immediately, the task stays light, simple, manageable. This is how you stay in control. Another key principle is this: action creates clarity. Not thinking, not planning, not waiting. Action. You can spend hours trying to figure out the perfect approach, or you can start and learn more in minutes than you would in hours of thinking. Because once you move, you get feedback. You see what works, you see what doesn't, and you adjust. That is how progress actually happens. Not through perfect planning, but through imperfect action, repeated consistently. There is also a psychological advantage to immediate action. It builds trust in yourself. Every time you act quickly, you prove something, that you can rely on yourself, that when you decide, you follow through. And that trust is powerful. Because once you trust yourself, hesitation disappears. You no longer question. You no longer delay. You simply move. But if you constantly delay, if you constantly ignore your own decisions, you break that trust. And once trust is broken, discipline becomes harder. Because now, your mind expects you to delay. It expects inconsistency, and it acts accordingly. So immediate action is not just about results. It is about identity. You are becoming someone who acts, someone who executes, someone who moves without hesitation. Another important shift is eliminating the need to feel ready. You will not feel ready. Most of the time, you will feel resistance, uncertainty, discomfort, and that is normal. That is part of the process. But those feelings are not signals to stop. They're signals to move. Because growth always feels uncomfortable at first. And if you wait for comfort, you will stay where you are. So you act despite the feeling. You move despite the doubt. You begin despite the uncertainty. Because action changes the feeling, not the other way around. There is also the importance of making action simple. If something feels too big, you will delay. So break it down. Reduce it. Make it small enough to start immediately. Because starting is the key. Once you start, momentum takes over. And what felt difficult becomes manageable. But you must cross that starting point. And immediate action helps you do that. Another powerful strategy is this: follow the now rule. If something takes less than a few minutes, do it now. If something moves you forward, start it now. Train your brain to associate thinking with action. Not delay, not hesitation, action. This rewires your behavior. It turns execution into your default, instead of procrastination. There is also a deeper truth here. Your life is shaped by the speed of your actions. Not just what you do, but how quickly you do it. Because opportunities do not wait. Ideas do not stay forever. Moments pass. And if you hesitate, you miss them. But when you act fast, you capture them. You use them. You turn them into results. So speed matters. Not careless speed, but decisive speed. Clear thinking followed by immediate execution. That is the combination. And that is what separates those who move forward from those who stay stuck. So understand this clearly. You don't need more time. You don't need more planning. You don't need more motivation. You need to act faster. Because the moment you act, everything changes. You break resistance. You build momentum. You create progress. And progress leads to results. So the next time you feel the urge to delay, pause, recognize it, and do the opposite. Move immediately, because every moment of action strengthens you, and every moment of delay weakens you. So choose action, again and again, until it becomes automatic, until hesitation disappears, until execution becomes who you are. Because once you master immediate action, you stop being someone who thinks about change and become someone who creates it instantly. Chapter 6. Becoming addicted to progress. There is something more powerful than motivation, more reliable than discipline, more consistent than willpower, and that is progress. Not big progress, not dramatic change, but small, visible, undeniable progress. Because when you see yourself moving forward, even slightly, something shifts inside you. You feel momentum. You feel control. You feel capable. And that feeling becomes addictive. This is what most people are missing. They are not addicted to progress. They are addicted to comfort, to distraction, to instant gratification. And because of that, they never experience the deeper satisfaction that comes from growth. So they stay stuck in cycles. Short bursts of effort, followed by long periods of inaction, because they never train their mind to crave progress. But you are about to change that. You're going to rewire your brain to seek progress the same way it seeks pleasure. Because once that happens, action becomes natural. Consistency becomes easier, and discipline becomes automatic. The first step is understanding this. Your brain responds to reward. It repeats what feels good. So if you want to take action consistently, you must make progress feel rewarding. And that starts by recognizing it. Most people ignore small wins. They only focus on big results. And because big results take time, they feel like nothing is happening. So they lose motivation. They quit. But progress is happening. They just don't see it. So you must train yourself to notice it. Every action, every step, every improvement. Because awareness creates reinforcement. And reinforcement builds behavior. Another powerful principle is tracking. What you track, you improve. When you can see your progress, it becomes real, tangible, measurable, and that makes it satisfying. So track your actions, not just outcomes. Did you show up today? Did you take action? Did you move forward? Because those are the things that matter. Results will follow, but actions come first. Another key is lowering the barrier to progress. If something feels too big, you won't start. So make progress easy. Make it small. Make it immediate. Instead of thinking, I need to finish everything today. Think, I just need to take one step. Because one step leads to another, and another. And before you know it, you've built momentum. This is how progress compounds. Another important shift is consistency over intensity. Doing a lot once means nothing. Doing a little every day changes everything. Because repetition builds momentum, and momentum builds identity. You stop being someone who tries sometimes, and become someone who acts daily. And once that identity is built, progress becomes natural. There's also power in momentum loops. You act, you see progress, you feel good, so you act again, and the cycle continues. But if you don't act, the opposite happens. You delay, you feel stuck, you lose motivation, so you delay again. And that cycle continues too. So the goal is simple. Start the positive loop. Break the negative one immediately. Because once momentum builds, it carries you. Even on days when you don't feel like moving. Even when motivation is low. Because now, you are not relying on feelings. You are relying on progress. Another powerful truth is this. Progress reduces fear. The more you act, the less you fear. Because action creates familiarity, and familiarity reduces uncertainty. So things that once felt difficult become normal, easy, automatic. This is how growth works, not through sudden breakthroughs, but through repeated exposure, repeated action, repeated progress. There's also the importance of visualizing your progress, seeing yourself move forward, seeing improvement. Because your brain responds to what it can see. So make your progress visible. Write it down. Track it. Measure it. Because visibility creates motivation. And motivation fuels action. Another key element is patience. Progress is not always fast. Sometimes it is slow, subtle, almost invisible. But that does not mean it is not happening. It is building beneath the surface, strengthening your foundation. preparing you for bigger results. So you must trust the process. Keep going. Keep acting, even when it feels slow, because consistency will always win in the end. Another important shift is redefining success. Success is not the final result. It is the act of showing up, of taking action, of moving forward every single day. Because if you focus only on the end, you'll feel far away. But if you focus on daily progress, you will always feel in control. And control builds confidence. Confidence builds action. And action builds results. So understand this clearly. Your goal is not perfection. Your goal is progress. Small, consistent, relentless progress. Because that is what creates change. That is what builds momentum. That is what transforms your life. So start noticing it. Start tracking it. Start valuing it. Because once you become addicted to progress, you will never want to go back. You will not crave distraction. You will not chase comfort. You will crave growth. You will crave movement. You will crave action. And when that happens, everything changes. Because now, you're no longer forcing yourself to act. You're drawn to it, pulled forward by progress, driven by momentum. And that is where real transformation happens. Not in a single moment, but in thousands of small steps, taken consistently, until they become unstoppable. Chapter 7. Total control. Eliminating distractions and owning your attention. Right now, your biggest enemy is not lack of opportunity. It is not lack of knowledge. It is not even lack of discipline. It is distraction. Silent. Constant. Invisible. Stealing your time. Fragmenting your focus. Destroying your ability to act. Because every time your attention is pulled away, you lose more than just a few seconds. You lose momentum. You lose clarity. You lose control. And without control, consistent action becomes impossible. This is the hidden reason most people never execute. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't stay focused long enough to follow through. They start something, then get distracted. They try to work, then check their phone. They plan to act, then get pulled into something else. And by the end of the day, they feel busy, but nothing meaningful gets done. This is the trap, and it is designed. Everything around you is competing for your attention. Apps, notifications, content, messages, all engineered to keep you engaged. Scrolling, clicking, consuming, because your attention is valuable. And if you don't control it, something else will. So understand this clearly. If you do not take control of your attention, you will never take control of your life. Because attention drives action, and action creates results. So if your attention is scattered, your results will be scattered too. Inconsistent, unpredictable, limited. But when your attention is focused, everything changes. You think clearer, you act faster, you execute deeper, and your results multiply. So the goal is not just to work harder. It is to focus better, to protect your attention like it matters, because it does. More than time, more than effort, because without attention, both are wasted. The first step is awareness. You must see how often you are distracted, how easily your focus breaks, how quickly your attention shifts. Because most distractions are automatic, habitual. You don't even realize they're happening. You reach for your phone without thinking. You open apps without intention. You switch tasks without reason. And every time you do, you weaken your focus. So start noticing it. Catch yourself in the act. Because awareness is the first step to control. The second step is elimination. Remove what you don't need. Not everything, but enough. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Limit access to distractions. Create barriers between you and what pulls your attention away. Because willpower alone is not enough. You must design your environment so that focus becomes easier and distraction becomes harder. Another powerful principle is this. What you see controls what you do. If distractions are visible, you will use them. If they are hidden, you will forget them. So control your environment. Keep only what supports your goals in front of you. Remove everything else. Because your environment shapes your behavior more than you realize. Another critical shift is single tasking, doing one thing at a time, with full focus. Because multitasking is a lie. It feels productive, but it destroys efficiency. Every time you switch tasks, your brain resets. It loses depth. It loses clarity. It loses momentum. So instead of doing many things poorly, do one thing well, completely, fully, until it's done. This is where real progress happens. In deep focus, not shallow effort. Another key is creating focus blocks. Dedicated periods of time where you eliminate all distractions. No phone, no interruptions, no switching, just pure, uninterrupted action. Even 30 minutes of this can outperform hours of distracted work. Because depth creates results, and results create momentum. There is also the importance of boredom. Most people avoid it. They need constant stimulation, constant input, constant distraction. But boredom is powerful because it forces your mind to focus, to think, to act. When there is nothing else to do, your brain turns inward. It creates, it solves, it moves. But if you constantly feed it stimulation, it becomes dependent. It loses its ability to focus deeply. So you must learn to sit with boredom, to accept it, because on the other side of boredom is clarity, and clarity leads to action. Another important factor is energy. Low energy leads to distraction. When you are tired, your brain seeks easy rewards, quick dopamine. So you scroll, you check, you avoid effort. But when your energy is high, focus becomes easier. Action becomes natural. So you must manage your energy. Sleep well. Take breaks. Reset when needed. Because focus is not just mental. It is physical. Another powerful truth is this. Every distraction has a cost. Not just time, but opportunity. Every moment spent on something meaningless is a moment not invested in your future. And when you start seeing it that way, your behavior changes. You become more intentional, more selective, more controlled, because now your time and attention have value. Another shift is replacing distraction with action. You don't just remove distractions, you redirect yourself. When you feel the urge to check something, you act instead. You start a task. You move forward, even if it's small, because action breaks the habit of distraction, and repetition builds control. Another powerful concept is identity. You're not someone who is easily distracted. You're someone who controls your focus, who protects your attention, who executes without interruption. And the more you reinforce that identity, the stronger it becomes. Because behavior follows belief, and belief shapes action. So what does all this mean? It means your ability to focus determines your ability to succeed. Not your intelligence, not your potential, but your control over your attention. Because attention drives everything. And once you take control of it, you take control of your actions, your results, your future. So eliminate distractions, reduce noise, create space, protect your focus, because your mind is your most powerful tool. And when it is focused, it becomes unstoppable. When it is scattered, it becomes ineffective. The choice is yours. Control it or lose it, because in the end, the person who controls their attention controls their life. Chapter 8. Building unstoppable momentum that carries you forward. Starting is difficult, but starting is not the real problem. The real problem is stopping, losing consistency, breaking the rhythm, falling back into old patterns. Because once you stop, everything becomes harder again. You have to restart, rebuild, refocus. And most people never recover from that break. They start, then stop, start again, then stop again. And over time, this cycle destroys their confidence. They begin to believe they are inconsistent, undisciplined, unable to follow through. But the truth is not that they can't succeed. The truth is they never built momentum. Momentum is what makes action easier over time. It reduces resistance, increases speed. It carries you forward even when motivation disappears. And without it, every action feels heavy, forced, difficult. So the goal is not just to act. The goal is to build momentum and protect it at all costs. Because once momentum is strong, everything changes. You think less. You hesitate less. You act faster. Because now, movement is your default, not resistance. But momentum does not come from big actions. It comes from small, repeated ones. Consistent effort, daily movement, even when it feels insignificant, because momentum is built quietly, in the background, through repetition, through consistency, through showing up again and again. The first principle of momentum is this: never break the chain. Consistency matters more than intensity. Doing a lot once means nothing. Doing something every day changes everything. Because repetition builds rhythm, and rhythm creates flow. Once you enter that flow, action becomes easier, natural, automatic. So your job is simple. Show up every day, no matter what, even if it's small, even if it's minimal, because maintaining momentum is easier than rebuilding it. Another powerful principle is reducing the starting resistance. The harder it feels to begin, the more likely you are to delay. So make starting easy. Lower the barrier. Remove friction. Tell yourself, I will just begin, not finish, not complete everything. Just begin, because starting creates movement, and movement creates momentum. Once you begin, your mind shifts, your focus increases, your energy aligns, and what felt difficult becomes manageable. But you must cross that starting point every single day. Another key factor is stacking actions. One action leads to another. You complete a task, and it pushes you into the next. You build a chain of execution, and that chain strengthens momentum. Because now, you are not stopping between tasks. You're flowing through them. This is how productive people operate. They don't start and stop repeatedly. They move continuously, from one action to the next, without breaking rhythm. Another powerful truth is this: momentum thrives on completion. Every time you finish something, you reinforce progress. You send a signal to your brain: I follow through, and that builds confidence. But when you leave things unfinished, you weaken momentum. You create mental clutter, open loops, and those loops drain your energy. So complete what you start, even if it's small, because completion creates closure, and closure creates clarity. Another important factor is protecting your momentum. Once you have it, you must guard it, because it is fragile in the beginning, easily broken by distraction, by delay, by inconsistency. So avoid long breaks. Avoid unnecessary interruptions. Avoid anything that pulls you out of your rhythm. Because once momentum is broken, restarting becomes harder. Not impossible, but harder. And that's where most people fall off. So protect it, like it matters, because it does. Another key is identity. You are not someone who tries to stay consistent. You are someone who moves daily, who builds momentum, who does not stop. And the more you reinforce that identity, the stronger your behavior becomes. Because now, consistency is not something you force. It is something you do, naturally, automatically. There's also the role of energy. Momentum requires fuel. If you're constantly drained, it becomes harder to sustain. So you must manage your energy. Rest when needed, but don't stop completely. Even on low energy days, do something. Because something keeps momentum alive. Nothing kills it. Another powerful concept is the minimum standard. A baseline you never go below, no matter what. Even on your worst day, even when you don't feel like it. You meet that standard, because that standard protects your momentum. It keeps you moving, even when progress is slow. And slow progress is always better than no progress. Another important truth is this: momentum reduces effort. At the beginning, everything feels hard. Starting is difficult. Continuing is difficult. But once momentum builds, things become easier. You don't need as much discipline. You don't need as much motivation. Because now, your system is running, and you're simply maintaining it. This is where real progress happens. Not in bursts, but in sustained movement. Over time, another shift is focusing on process over results. If you focus only on results, you will feel far away. You will feel like nothing is happening. But if you focus on the process, the daily actions, you will always feel in control. And control builds confidence. Confidence builds consistency. Consistency builds momentum. And momentum creates results. So trust the process. Stay consistent. Keep moving. Because results will come. But only if you stay in motion long enough. So understand this clearly. Momentum is not something you wait for. It is something you build. Through small actions. Repeated daily. Protected consistently. Until it becomes powerful enough to carry you forward. And once it does, you no longer struggle to act. You no longer rely on motivation. You no longer fight resistance every day. Because now you're in motion. And motion creates progress. Progress creates results. And results reinforce momentum. This is the cycle you want. This is the system you build. This is how you become unstoppable. Not by doing something once, but by never stopping, by showing up every day, by moving forward no matter what. Because once momentum is on your side, everything becomes easier. Everything becomes faster. Everything begins to work. And that is when your life truly starts to change. Chapter 9. Becoming relentless. The mindset that refuses to quit. At some point, everything will test you. Your discipline will be tested. Your focus will be tested. Your consistency will be tested. There will be days when you feel tired. Days when you don't see results. Days when it feels like nothing is working. And in those moments, most people stop. Not because they failed, but because they lost patience. Because they expected things to happen faster. Easier. Smoother. But real progress does not feel like that. Real progress is uncomfortable. Slow. Uncertain. And that is exactly why most people never reach it. Because they are not willing to stay in that space long enough. They want results without resistance. Growth without discomfort. Success without struggle. But that is not how it works. Because the moment things become difficult, that is the moment that matters most. That is where separation happens. That is where you either become stronger or fall back into old patterns. So the question is not, can you start? The question is, can you continue when it gets hard? Because that is where everything is decided. This is where you must become relentless. Not emotional. Not reactive. Relentless. You move forward no matter what. You act no matter how you feel. You continue even when progress is slow. Because you understand something most people don't. Consistency beats emotion. Every single time, your emotions will change. They will rise. They will fall. Some days you will feel unstoppable. Other days, you will feel nothing. And if you rely on those feelings, you will be inconsistent, unpredictable, unstable. But when you become relentless, you remove emotion from the equation. You act based on commitment, not feeling. You move based on decision, not mood. And that changes everything. Because now nothing can stop you. Not laziness, not doubt, not fear. Because you no longer depend on how you feel. You depend on what you decided. Another powerful truth is this. Quitting becomes a habit, just like action. Every time you stop when things get hard, you reinforce that pattern. You train your mind to escape discomfort, to avoid resistance, to choose the easier path. And over time, that becomes automatic. But the opposite is also true. Every time you continue despite difficulty, you build strength, you build resilience, you build control, and that becomes your new pattern. So understand this clearly. You're not just building success. You are building tolerance for discomfort. Because the more you can handle, the further you can go. Another key shift is redefining difficulty. Most people see difficulty as a signal to stop, as a warning, as a reason to slow down. But you must see it differently. Difficulty is a sign of growth, a signal that you are pushing beyond your current level, that you are expanding, improving, evolving. So instead of avoiding it, you move toward it, because that is where progress lives. Another important concept is delayed results. You will not always see immediate outcomes. You will not always get instant feedback. Sometimes you will work and nothing will happen, at least not visibly. But that does not mean nothing is happening. Progress is building beneath the surface. Skills are improving. Habits are strengthening. Your mindset is evolving. And all of that takes time. So you must trust the process, even when you cannot see the results yet. Because those who quit early never reach the breakthrough. But those who stay consistent eventually do. Another powerful principle is endurance. Not speed, not intensity, endurance. The ability to keep going, to stay in motion, to continue longer than most people are willing to. Because success is not about who starts first. It is about who lasts the longest. And most people quit too early. They give up just before things begin to work, just before momentum builds, just before results appear. So your advantage is simple. You don't stop. You keep going. When it's easy, keep going. When it's hard, keep going. When it feels slow, keep going. Because that consistency creates separation. That persistence creates results. Another shift is removing the option to quit. Not reducing it, not managing it, eliminating it. Because as long as quitting is an option, you will consider it. You will think about it. You will be tempted by it. But when it is no longer available, your only option is to continue. And when continuing is the only option, you find a way. Always. Another powerful factor is identity. You're not someone who gives up. You're not someone who stops. You're someone who finishes. Someone who follows through. Someone who keeps going no matter what. And the more you reinforce that identity, the stronger it becomes. Because now, quitting feels unnatural, foreign, out of character, and continuing becomes automatic. There is also strength in repetition, doing the same things again and again, even when it's boring, even when it feels repetitive, because mastery is built through repetition, not variety, not constant change, but consistent execution. And most people avoid repetition because it feels slow, because it lacks excitement. But that is exactly where success is built, in the quiet, in the routine, in the daily actions that seem small but compound over time. Another important truth is this. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to continue. Because progress is not about perfection. It is about persistence, showing up, taking action, moving forward, again and again, until results appear. So understand this clearly. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not luck. It is the ability to keep going. When others stop, when others quit, when others lose patience, you continue relentlessly. Because once you build that mindset, nothing can stop you. Not obstacles, not setbacks, not slow progress. Because you have removed the one thing that destroys most people, the option to quit. And once that is gone, success becomes inevitable. Not immediate, but inevitable. Because you will keep moving. You will keep building. You will keep improving until the results match your effort. So become relentless. Not for a day, not for a week, but as a way of thinking, a way of acting, a way of living. Because once you reach that level, you don't just chase success. You become the kind of person who cannot be stopped from achieving it. Chapter 10. Mastering the Wealth Mindset. Becoming unshakable in your financial growth. Wealth is not about luck. It is not about talent. It is not about working harder than everyone else. It is about mindset, the way you think about money, the beliefs you carry about success, the identity you hold in your mind about what is possible for you. Most people never reach true wealth, not because they fail to earn, but because their mindset is misaligned. They chase income. They chase opportunities. They chase results, but they never master the inner game. And the inner game always wins. To become wealthy, you must first become unshakable. Unshakable in your beliefs. unshakable in your discipline, unshakable in your identity. Because the world will test you. Opportunities will fail. Mistakes will happen. Unexpected setbacks will arise. And if your mind is fragile, everything falls apart. But if your mindset is strong, nothing can derail you. The first step is awareness. You must recognize the patterns in your thinking. Notice the self-limiting beliefs that quietly dictate your actions. I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. Money is hard to get. These are not truths. They're scripts you have repeated until your brain believes them. And if you do not rewrite them, your results will never exceed them. So you must begin to reprogram your thinking. Step 1. Define your wealth identity. Who are you becoming? What does a wealthy person think? How do they act? What choices do they make daily? This is not surface-level behavior. It is deep, internal programming. A wealthy identity thinks in terms of abundance. It sees opportunity, not limitation. It solves problems, not complains about them. It acts, even when the path is unclear. Step 2. Train your mind through repetition. Your brain is like clay. Every thought, every affirmation, every visualization shapes it. Speak daily in alignment with your new identity. I am a person who creates wealth. I act decisively and strategically every day. I see opportunity and take action immediately. Repetition turns thought into belief. Belief turns into action. Action turns into results. Step 3. Develop financial discipline. Wealth is not created by impulsive decisions. It is created by consistent, intentional actions. Control your spending. Invest in growth. Save strategically. Reinvest your earnings. Measure every decision by its long-term impact. Discipline is the bridge between knowledge and results. Step 4. Embrace delayed gratification. Instant pleasure will keep you poor. The ability to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term gain is a hallmark of wealth. You will make choices daily that feel hard in the moment, but compound into massive advantages over time. Step 5. Protect your mindset relentlessly. Distractions abound. Negative influences will try to pull you back into scarcity thinking. You must guard your mental space. Feed your mind with information, people, and routines that reinforce wealth. Your environment shapes your identity. If you allow doubt and scarcity to infiltrate it, your programming will degrade. Step 6. Take massive, consistent action. Wealth is never a passive game. Ideas without execution are worthless. Opportunities without action are fleeting. Skills without application are wasted. You must act decisively. Every day, even when fear, uncertainty, or discomfort arise. Relentless action compounds over time, just like money. Step 7. Build multiple streams of income. Do not rely on a single source. Diversify your efforts. Develop skills, assets, investments, and systems that generate wealth in multiple ways. This is how you create security, stability, and exponential growth. Step 8. Learn from failures and setbacks. Mistakes are inevitable. Losses are inevitable, but the wealthy see them as lessons. Every failure carries information. Every setback is an opportunity to refine strategy. Every mistake strengthens resilience. Your mind must interpret challenges as data, not disasters. Step 9. Reinforce a long-term vision. Wealth is not built overnight. It is a process of consistent, deliberate choices over years. Keep your eyes on the horizon. Measure progress in months and years, not days. Trust the compounding of effort, knowledge, and assets. Step 10. Live in alignment with your new identity. Think like a wealthy person. Act like a wealthy person. Choose like a wealthy person. Every choice, every decision, every action must reinforce who you are becoming. Because the inner game dictates the outer results. When your mindset is unshakable, your behavior becomes unstoppable. And when your behavior is unstoppable, wealth is inevitable. Not because of luck, not because of timing, not because of circumstances, but because you have mastered the mental patterns that create financial abundance. So commit today to the identity, to the process, to the discipline, to the action. Master your mind, and your wealth will follow. Because true wealth is not found in money alone. It is found in the person you become in the process of creating it.